you found out most of the tertiary educations, institutions today, like universities, colleges of education, and polytechnics, you found out that most of their staff are on either capacity building, masters, PhDs, and they also sponsor people into other seminars, workshops, just to build capacity, because it was, as we said, garbage in, garbage out. So the quality of teachers has a very great impact on the students. So we also have to do stakeholders, workshops, and other things, and to ensure that everybody is carried along. Because I remember, like in 2007, when ASU came to NUC, we had a series of meetings with them, and we identified the gap, that is the actual numbers of staff that we have on ground, and what is needed. So that was what brought about those policies whereby we had to improve on the quality of teachers, and also to attract more teachers into the higher education sector. So, and you need, after that, you need to also monitor to see whether you have an impact on that policy. So, so data plays a very key role in the whole of this process, because without data, you won't know what the gap is, and to know what intervention needs to be done to actually address the problem. So that's where evidence and data plays a very strong role in formulating policies. So that's what we do. And I have other examples, but since we are focusing on teachers, let me leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. As a special advisor, I'm sure you must be engaging with His Excellency on many of these policy issues. And someone who has come from the private sector, is there anything that intrigues you about how policy are made in the public sector?
I think, good morning once again, everybody. I think one of the key differences between private sector and government sometimes is the fact that you come in and you see that there are a lot of challenges, you know, and that if you're not careful, the scope of what you need to do can be overwhelming. But I also think the key thing you now try to do is you can't solve all problems.
They know what the real problems are. So by the time they come to government and discuss with government, and how government will now expand that, it's to now maybe organize a workshop or something whereby we bring in more stakeholders to the problem. Because sometimes a problem may look, you may just look at the problem as a surface, but you have to now go deep to actually analyze the problem to see what are those indicators, what are those things that are actually contributing to causing that. So you really have to problemize the problem, that is to break it into smaller bits. So what government has to do is bring all those people together, those people that are initiating it, and bring more other stakeholders to actually deliberate and talk about that problem, and from there that you find out that you'll be able to get maybe more information, or because most of these private agencies, they are involved in research and other things, so they have data and they have evidence that they can bring to government, and I think from there we can move forward to formulate better policies for the system. I think that's my thinking. That's the way to. Thank you.
Yeah, the special advisor, I think you did mention about the quality of education issue and how the private sector identified quality of education as a problem and how that also prompted some interventions. But do you want to talk about more about this issue of, you know, what are the other various sources of influence on policy making?
No, thank you very much, sir. I think one of the key things I think for us to solve our education challenge, it has to be a partnership in government and private sector, because government has the capacity to scale, which we have to do, and also private sector has the funds and also has sometimes the expertise, you know, to run these programs and do these programs very, very effectively. I think that's a critical thing that we need to do. And the statistics and the numbers we have that stares us in our faces is very worrying. I mean, in 2016, according to the Nigerian University Commission, We took in 750,000 people into our universities across the country. 700
organizations, but we have coalitions that we include from time to time. In fact, when he was talking, Dr. Adekosun was talking about NICE, my mind went there and said, oh, this is another coalition that we could work with. So those coalitions come to the meeting. They could also work with the states. If, for instance, you are working in Lagos State, you could work with the Ministry of Education in Lagos State and say you want to present a memo to council to say there is an issue that needs to be addressed. And following the outcomes of this conference, this is the way we think we can go about it, and this will inform policy. So that coalition and that state government that they have worked with would come up to the Joint Consultative Committee on Education and present a memo. All the states are usually there. We have representatives from the academia, universities and so on, colleges of education, and experts. Also, our international development partners, they are always there. So the issues are looked at, your recommendations are fine-tuned, and then it moves on to the National Council on Education. And usually, having passed through the plenary session and on to the National Council of Education, it's usually passed, or there's some recommendation about how it can be fine-tuned or reviewed. So the private sector does have input in policy formulation in Nigeria.
Thank you. Mazakari, you want to say something? And Mazakari, I don't know whether you want to say something that I think that the special advisor mentioned about the challenge that we're going to face in terms of even getting our kids to universities. But we also all hear all the time about these 11 million children. It doesn't increase, it doesn't decrease. For the last 10 years, we have been saying 11 million children are out of school. So, and the reality is that there is no way any government can build space for...
24.
Oh, it's now 24 today?
Yeah, today we just had on the 24.
Oh, 24 now, okay. 24 million now. Oh, okay. So, I think between yesterday and today, from 10 million to 24. But I think it's a very serious issue in terms of, how does also, I think, how does government policy interact with the private sector, or how does it influence private sector? Because if we are going to do anything about this, whatever is the number of those children, we know there's no government in this country that will be able to absorb these children into the school system. So how do we also bridge that gap between what government is doing, what government is doing, and what the private sector could do and other things as well? I think it's not a one-way traffic, I think it's a two-way traffic as well.
Well, areas of the state. And using that 440 million naira as a bait, we attracted community and non-state contribution to the tune of 826 million naira, which was used to provide classrooms, seats, renovate blocks of classrooms, and things like that. The issue here is, like it is done in other parts of the world, most countries draw from the experiences of other organizations. They have a lot of support organizations that influence policy formulation, from research, from physical, empirical evidence, and I think Nigeria should adopt this approach because we have experimented it in Kano and it has worked. The public cannot do it all alone. We in Kano State have over 3 million public school children. 3 million. And we have 7,218 public primary schools. Every month we pay 2,911,000,000 as salary, and therefore government cannot do it all alone. And through partnership that help to come up with policies that work for the system, we have been succeeding. And this is the only way that the problems of education in Nigeria can be salvaged, whether at the tertiary level or at the basic level. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this heartwarming work that Kano State government is doing to address these challenges. I think that we can now begin to open up the floor for comments, ideas, suggestions. Maybe it's coming to overrule me, but that is also possible.
The issue of we are talking about evidence. Most of the evidence that we are using in the education sectors were being paid, researched by development partners, not by government. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that we can come back to this. I think that Malam Zakari also acknowledged some of the challenges you mentioned. So I think you're just reinforcing some of the points he's making. So maybe we can let's take the comments from this side first, and then we can go to the other side. So don't worry, we'll come back to you. Can we start from the back?
Thank you. My name is Fola Shadia.
Yes, and the special advisor from Lagos has given you the permission to talk, even before me.
Yes, and my name is Fola Shadia Israel. I am a private practitioner, but presently now on a project in Osun State where I am running one of the mega schools in the state. I think I'd like to take up one comment by Mr. Bankolemo, and that was on implementation. I find that we just don't seem to have the capacity. We have lots of policies. I've also been a consultant to the Nigeria Economic Summit Group for many years. So I know that we have roomfuls of policies, and they're very well written, because we are good at writing. I think our use of English is very good. So they're well written, they're well thought through. They're even based sometimes on empirical data. But I think the major problem, honestly, that I have seen that keeps coming through is implementation. After written those policies,
and somebody that scores 116 with 30% College of Education, and we want those people to come to the primary school and teach our children. I wonder what they are going to learn. Then the second aspect is, I want to direct a question or a comment to the SA from Lagos. Some time ago, last year, I was in Lagos personally. I went to a primary school, St. Peter's Grammar School, St. Peter's Anglican Primary School.
Primary school setting, that was done. And what we're trying to do is to try and reduce students to pupil ratio. It's a deliberate thing, we've done that. But and we also spent last year in the Lagos State budget, we had an intervention where we spent about 10 billion naira in renovating our schools across the state. And we're also going to do that in this budget. So the question is, are we saying that with that we're going to solve all the problems of education? No. But we're deliberate, we're strategic, we've done a schools audit, we know the schools that need to be renovated, we've started taking them off one by one, and we're committed to ensuring that we do that. But the reality is this. The reality is that there are 750,000 people that come into Lagos on a yearly basis, according to World Economic Forum, not Lagos State, World Economic Forum. Of that 750,000 people, less than 20% of them leave Lagos. So the pressure on the infrastructure of Lagos is unbearable. And that's the reality. The reality is that we need to scale up in the way we fund our education. And we need to ensure that all the states around the country are all have people gravitating to other states around the country to help reduce the pressure on the state. That's the reality in Lagos. And it's something that we're engaging, we're committed to, and we'll continue to do it. So like I said, I've noted that when I leave here now, I'll make a call to the permanent secretary. I'll be able to know the reality. But like I said, if that school is that bad, we have the database of it, and we are repairing the schools, and something we're committed to doing, and we're still going to continue to do. But it's something that the government can handle by itself, and that's the reality. That must be, like I said here, and I keep saying, must be a partnership within the government and also the private sector, whereby you have private sector investments in education. That's not just for private sector to make themselves feel good, but it's deliberate and it's helping solve problems in the education sector. And that's what we do in Lagos. We have a project.
Declare a state of emergency in education. So government is not asleep. We do know that these issues are there. And then specifically concerning teachers, and why are we lowering standards in terms of admission criteria to the colleges of education? It is not that that is what we want, but what we have realized is that if you say 200, that's how we start. Cut-off mark is 200 for every institution. You won't get anybody to go to the colleges of education. And why? Because of the status of teachers. I don't know how many of you here would say, okay, you have a child and you say, you're going to be a teacher. I'm sure if the child says, I want to be a teacher, you would ask, is there something wrong? Yes. So we have to face the reality. So until you improve the status of teachers, you will not get anyone, the high flyers, to the colleges of education. The TRCN is what Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria is working on this and is insisting that only good quality students get into the colleges of education. But where do we find them? In the Ministerial Strategic Plan, one of the strategies we have talked about is, could you give scholarships to students who want to go to colleges of education, who want to become teachers? When I went to the university, some of my schoolmates in the secondary school who went for nursing that time, they were given scholarships, they were being paid, because at that time, Nigeria realized that there was a need for nurses. Now we have a need for quality teachers. What strategies are we putting in place? What are the states doing? Can we say, let's pay them? I'm sure there are some indigent students who with such, they may be interested in teaching. There are some that may be interested in teaching, but when they look at the status of the teacher in the society, then they say, no, I can't go for that. But if you put in place some strategies that will encourage them, teachers in rural areas, do you give them some special stipend or something to encourage them to remain there? Then you get good entrance into the College of Education. And then, madam, the policies are not thrown away. They are just there, perhaps, not being implemented. But for the implementation, we have to ask, it's the political will to bring up these initiatives for us to implement. So you are right, the policies are well formulated and crafted, but at the point of implementation, that is where we have a problem. And the only way we can do that is to have that political will to say, yes, we want to achieve, we want to do this, and we go ahead doing it. And when there is a change of government, we do not now say, okay, put that initiative away, we want to do something else. Until we begin to do this, I think we will just be going in cycles. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to just say something about the policy. So let me make a correction. Actually, the cutoff point for entry to university is 180, not 200, since we're talking about evidence here. Yeah, so for the policy implementation, as Madam has said, yeah, we have a lot of policies. But my thinking is, when you have a policy that you cannot implement or is difficult, then I think you have to also look at the design of that policy, the implementation of that program or project. What is stopping it from being implemented? Because if you say it's beautiful, but you can't implement it, then there's a problem somewhere. So I think we now have to find, to actually research into that policy and to see what is stopping it from flying. It is when we solve those problems that you now see that policies will now be able to fly in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we take a vote from this side now? You guys have missed your chance. So this side now, 4 people, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's the first 4, yeah.
Good morning, everybody.
It's turn by turn. And don't move to the other side.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dolapo Mubawo. And I just want to make a comment about the private sector involvement. We all know the problems of education in Nigeria. And I think what this summit should be preferring are solutions, and I'm putting one on the table for consideration. I understand, and I've found out myself, that private universities do not offer education. And when I ask the reason why, who will pay to come and study education? What is the National University Commission doing about this? Can't you engage them as partners to make sure they provide good quality training for our teachers? Because we do understand, if the colleges of education are to be mended, some of them are in such tattered states that I don't even think they can be mended. At least the private education, private sector is doing good. So before you give them the certificate of operation, can you not say, do you have a department for education? Do you have? You see, and make sure they do that. Because we really need to do something about the quality of the teachers we are producing. You see, without teachers, our students will continue to fail. No matter how much you put into the structures of the school, the resources you put there, without the teachers who are good, we're not doing anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emiola Oyekuga. I was just wondering, for the policymakers, what type of evidence do you find useful in formulating the policies? For instance, the gentleman from the NUC said the cutoff mark to the university is 180. I'm just wondering what evidence informed the reduction of the cutoff mark, and then how do you, in what way do you, would you like the evidence to be presented to you, to be given to you? You know, what way would you find it useful to understand?